goodbye to a 5 lakh monthly income is not a joke. But this couple decided to take a plunge. Meet Vibhuti and Vipin, famously known as the IITian couple, who decided to quit their job and start content creation on relationships. And the most important part of relationship is money management. And that's why we are here to talk about how they manage their finances. And the most important question, how much money can you really make in content creation?
Shall we start?
Let's start.
Hi Vibhuti, hi Vipin. Let's start with your background.
So come from a middle class family. So I'm born and brought up in Chhattisgarh, and so all my schooling happened there. Then I moved to Patna, spent 3 years there. So 2010 में I qualified JEE, then spent 4 years in IIT Kharagpur. And उसके बाद jobs के लिए इधर-उधर कभी Bombay, कभी Bangalore. Also took a couple of years break in between to prepare for UPSC. Obviously didn't qualify, so came back to corporate and have a total of around 8 years of experience in corporate. And very recently took the unconventional decision of leaving corporate behind and becoming a full-time content creator.
Great, Vipin.
So I'm from Lucknow. Did my class 10th in 2005, 12th in 2007, gave JEE, went to Kota, gave JEE again in 2008, qualified. Then 2008 to 2013, graduated from IIT Kanpur. Then gave CAT. Then joined IIM Calcutta in 2013. Then I went to Reckitt Benckiser, got placed there. Then for 1 year I moved to Bira. Then in 2017 I took a career break. 3.5 years I went for my UPSC preparation just like her. And then came back in 2021, joined Zomato for about a year. And then post Zomato I joined this agri-tech company Vigro, based out of Bangalore only. And that was the time when we got married. Then from 2022, 2023 and 2024 till August I was working with Vigro. And recently resigned almost a month back. Like she said, the content creation journey has started, and hopefully now we'll pursue this full time.
Great. I think so many follow-up questions I have, but to start with, how did you guys meet?
We met on a matrimonial website. I had been in the process for 1.5 years when I met him. He had just begun his process, so he got lucky that way.
How did you plan for marriage, expenses-wise?
I did want to have a love marriage where it will be more equitable distribution of wealth. And it's not like we couldn't have done that, but he clearly came after a 3 years break from UPSC. So he had zero savings at that point of time. And I had been working at that point of time. So I had some savings of mine, and it was around 20-25 lakhs. And that gives you a decent enough marriage in Patna. So I think I got to fulfill all my little dreams and within this much budget.
Got it. So, of course, you being the IITian couple, how has your salary increased? I think our audience is very curious to understand how, how it pays off after graduating from IIT and then subsequently IIM.
Okay, so sorry to break the expectations of your audience, but you'd know, right? You're yourself an IITian and graduated from IIM also, that the top salaries are, of course, very luxurious or very something that everybody admires. But the average salaries are pretty much average. I wasn't your typical 9-pointer excelling in CADs kind of person. I got placed on day 7 in Reliance with a very average salary at that point of time, which was around 7 LPS. And after spending, I'm a metallurgical engineer, so that was a core job in one of the petrochemical plants. So I spent about 9 months there, and then I quickly wanted to switch. It was an era where startups were blooming. So I moved to a startup in Bombay with a hike of 8.5 lakhs LPA. Then I moved to another startup here in Bangalore. So then my salary would have gotten to be around 9 LPA. And it was in this job, after working here for about a year, when I decided to quit and go for UPSC preparation. This would be 2016. And after UPSC preparation in 2018, when I came back, I started with around 12 LPA in OYO. And there, after a hike or so, I think it went about to 15-16 LPA. Then a career switch, and it went to 17. Then another hike within the company, 2021. Then another career switch, 26. Then hike within the company, 30, 31. And then the last career switch, I ended up at 38 LPA, which was my last drawn salary before quitting for content creation.
Got it. And just to close on that, right, you also took a break in between for UPSC preparation. So how did you manage your expenses during that period?
Right. So like I said, it was pretty early in my career when I decided to go for UPSC. So it wasn't like I had a lot of savings. I'm sure I had some savings, but it was very much supported by my parents. The entire expenses that I incurred during 2 years of UPSC preparation.
Got it. What about you, Vipin?
So I graduated in 2013 from IIT Kanpur. At that point, I think I got placed on day 4 or day 5. I joined IIM Calcutta. The fees was around 13.5 lakhs. And then when I graduated from there, I think my salary at Reckitt was around 25-26 lakhs. So from a financial point of view, it made a lot of sense. Whatever I did, those life choices. Yeah. Then when I joined Bira, I think I joined at around 28. Then after 1 year, I left for UPSC. So to be honest, I mean, my IIM Calcutta loan, it was not a loan. Basically, that fees was basically paid by my brother. And so what I was doing during those 2.5 years when I was working, like whatever extra money I had, I used to just give it to my parents' account because they were investing something for my brother. So I just kind of started returning back that money. So I was not really investing except for any investments which are needed for tax. Except for the last 2-3 months when I realized that I'm probably going for UPSC, then what I did is like any extra savings which I had, I stopped giving to my parents that time. And that is something which I used for the next 1.5 years, my own savings. And out of the 3 years, half of it was basically borne by me, and then rest I asked my parents. Next, I joined Zomato, and at Zomato, I think I started at 33 around. When I moved from Zomato to Reckitt, I did not really get any hike, except the hike was in terms of ESOPs, potential money. Again, so stayed at 33 plus some 4 lakh worth of ESOPs. First appraisal at Vigro, I moved from 33 to 38. Second appraisal at Vigro, I think I roughly moved from 38 to 44 or something. So 15% hike, then an 18% hike. So this is where I have quit the job at this point of time.
Okay. Now, very curious about the fact, starting from 7.5 and ending at around 40, right? Income increases, right? What is your framework individually and as a couple to keep your expenses in check?
The most fundamental thing for me is that coming from the kind of background that we come from, right? Like whatever you have to spend, and then everything else needs to go into savings. Obviously, you question it once because you feel that by getting into an IIT or an IIM, you have probably, bypassed that lower middle class trap, right? Because this is what your parents teach you. But then when you start earning, like I bought my car, I started living in a good house, etc. And then obviously there was a disillusionment around, that these are not really the things. And hence I went into UPSC. So there was a disillusionment. I realized that these are not the things which in any way going to satisfy me as a person. So I'm still using the same car, by the way, the one which I bought in 2015. But the idea has been that spend as less as possible, and then whatever is left, put that into savings. That has been the fundamental strategy, if I have to tell you.
Got it. So what percentage of your total salary do you save versus spend?
So for me, like I said, prior to my UPSC journey, in terms of savings, I was giving everything to my parents. So jitna bhi kharcha ho raha tha, whatever were my spends, that obviously is separate. But other than that, I'll keep probably 1 lakh in my account. Everything else, I used to give to my parents.
Got it. 50-60% savings happening.
Easily. Obviously, when I was staying in Ahmedabad, the rent expenses were much less than when I moved to Bombay for Bira. The rent itself became, significantly higher, 30,000-40,000 per month. Other than that, no flashy expenses per se. So you can assume I've already told the salary, so everything else used to go to my parents. That was the fundamental strategy. Now, obviously, when we've been working here, now we are investing everything else in mutual funds or stocks.
Just to give you a little bit insight into his personality, he's a minimalist by nature. So it doesn't come to him, it's not that big of a challenge for him to save money because he does not have a lot of expenses. And that has come from a lot of studying of philosophy and internalizing it. So that is him for you in a nutshell. I, on the other hand, I'm a more regular person, at least used to be before marriage. So I can give you those numbers because when after UPSC I came back to corporate, I deep dived into personal finance. I knew that I'm not earning a lot, but I also was aware that I'm earning decent for a single person at the age of 26, 27. So I studied the basic fundamentals of personal finance, and that from there you understand that yes, 50-60% you should be investing. So for me personally, and I was living in Gurgaon, so which is again a metro, a big city. So I was able to indulge in whatever little luxuries I wanted to, and still managed to save like 50-60% of my income, and not just save, invest in it. So I was that was the time 2018-19 when I was reading up what are mutual funds, which mutual funds to invest in, how to diversify. Obviously, it started from the question of how to save taxes, and then you started getting into it, and it sounded interesting to me. So 50-60% used to go into mutual funds altogether. Stocks is not something that I could bring myself to do because it still feels a little bit more riskier. The rest 30, I've always believed as a thumb rule, 30-35% is what you need to spend in your living expenses, which was more than doable at that point of time. Then you keep for emergency or whatever in every month.
So in that 50% investment, where do you typically invest in, and has it changed pre-marriage and after marriage?
So I spent my late 20s into studying and understanding personal finance, and I think I got a decent idea of what a regular person should invest in. So majority of my investment ever since then has gone into mutual fund. A very small percentage also goes into FD because that comes from my mom, that thoda paisa FD mein bhi rakho. So I've continued doing that. Then yes, after meeting him, he I think started investing in stocks. So I dabbled into stocks, but I think I'm still not doing it a lot. He does more stock investing than me.
You've taken a break from your active job. What is your current investment portfolio like? How have you planned for that? And how is it divided across the different asset classes you mentioned? Mutual fund, FDs, real estate, if any?
So I have around 14 lakh in stocks, around 40 in mutual funds. Mutual fund is mostly equity. I think 80-85% is equity, 7-8% is gold, and 7-8% is debt. And I think I have some 3 lakh I've invested in US markets via vested. But that's it. It's a very minimal amount. It was a point when the tech companies were slightly on a dip, and people were suggesting, and that has worked beautifully for me.
Got it. And is it joint, or do you keep your finances separate?
Finances separate.
Separate. Yeah. And why do you do that?
The fundamental of our marriage has always been hardcore honesty. Right from the day one when we met, by default, we've been very honest about everything. And today I have this almost 62 lakhs worth of savings. And whatever I'm spending, she's fully aware of that, and whatever is left, I just put in my savings.
Very interesting take. Like, what's your portfolio like? Is it different from his, like strategy-wise?
No, actually pretty similar. So I also have about the same, roughly 60 lakhs worth of overall savings, out of which I think about 10 or so would be in FD, but the rest is in mutual funds. And mutual funds diversification is again about similar, 75-80% equity, and the rest is in debt and gold, just to balance it out a bit. Majority of my savings come from mutual funds, and I'm pretty comfortable with it. Just to answer your question of having joint finances from my POV, we never really felt the need. Both of us were doing decently well, and for ourselves. And when we started living together, for whatever little living expenses we had, it was always to be shared like equally. And there's so many tools for you to manage that, same way you do it with your flatmates and all. So if you do split pies or anything or whatever. And we were also in very early years of marriage. So just to give context, we only got married in 2022. It is only when a couple starts taking big financial decisions together, maybe that is the point when they need to, pool in finances and resources and take decisions together. Up until now, we hadn't taken a lot of big financial decisions. Now that we are working together and whatever income we'll be making from this will be our joint income, then definitely we'll be taking decisions together as to where to invest and where not to.
Very interesting. And any conflict you have had around, you say you're individually your own financial decision makers, right? There's no primary financial decision maker. But of course, say, one person is investing in some XYZ, which maybe the other person feels it's too risky, etc. Like, have you had any of such conflicts?
Not really, but why we liked each other is also because a lot of our personality is similar that way, which means that our spending habits are also similar, not exactly same. Hence, probably we have never faced any conflicts.
Okay. Now, coming to the investment portfolio, right? I think 2 key buckets I see here. One is mutual fund, that's common across both of you, and stocks, right? So I would love to talk about both of these. Given that you have done a lot of research and given thought into investing in mutual funds, what's your framework to select mutual funds?
So the general things that, even within mutual fund, I would divide my assets into large cap, mid cap and small cap. And I'm feeling a little bit more ki bonus aaya hai, ye paisa lagate hai kahin. So I'll maybe put some lumps up into small cap after doing a bit of research that which is going to do better after COVID and all. Yes, you've seen the entire trajectory of how small cap funds play out also. Huge losses, slashing down and then coming back again. I was a very new investor. So although theoretically I knew that in the long run, everything makes sense. Short term, when the small cap started slashing down, it felt very bad. So now I've stabilized over there. But overall, one philosophy that I stick by is diversify. Do not put in a lot of effort. And if you cannot find out the exact percentage in which you need to diversify, stick to the safest bet and put it equally. That's the kind of thing I do. Large cap, mid cap, small cap, debt. Then I figured out ki acha thoda sa or gold maybe karna chahiye, because right now I'm not putting in a lot of effort into actively thinking how can I make my portfolio even better, because I have a feeling that my portfolio is doing well for me now. The year-on-year percentage return that I'm getting is, I think, on the better side of the average.
Is that, if I may ask?
It's around 18-19%. Okay. So for mutual funds, from whatever knowledge I have and have had discussions with my friends, I think it's well. So I've left it to do its job on its own.
And what about stocks? Like, how do you evaluate stocks?
I just called a very good friend of mine and I sat with him for 2 hours, and then he gave me a good brief, and on the basis of that, for a few days I did my own research, and that solidifies things into your head. The large summary of it was that keep some money in an emergency fund, keep some money in your bank account, and then be comfortable with taking a few risks. Look at the most popular ones and put an SIP into it, whatever your savings are, found the top 5 mutual funds and started investing into that. After probably an year or so, I started investing into stocks as well, with a very simple idea that India's IT sector and banks are going to stay stable. Please invest in it. And yes, that strategy, it has been almost 2.5 years since I've been investing in that. It's making a lot of sense. 22% is the kind of returns which I'm getting in stocks, and in mutual funds, very similar to what
So
she
it's
said.
long-term investing in stocks.
Long-term investment. I'm willing to take that risk. I'm comfortable taking that risk.
No, very true, and I can totally relate because I speak to so many people, audience of the app as well. It's two spectrums, right? Either people are just bilkul FD, or everyone wants to make like 30-50% return. But passive investors, as you rightly put it, right? Like disciplined, consistent investing karte raho, wealth will grow. So I think we spoke a lot about the careers, the expenses, portfolio. Now both of you have left your job, right? And you have ventured full-time into content creation. So how did you plan your portfolio, and what is the kind of money you expect to make, and in what time frames as a content creator?
So the moment she decided to leave her job, right, I think we realized that there are a few expenses we'll have to reduce. We'll have to make some sacrifices as well. We cannot get everything, right? So we moved from Harloor to Electronic City, where we are sitting right now. There's a huge difference in the rents. I think we were almost 65 to 70 there per month, and here we are at 42. So that's a kind of step which we took to build confidence amongst us that yes, we are serious about the work which we are going to do. Then we were thinking when we were there, when we had not yet started it, we were thinking of probably buying a new car. That's a decision we have totally, let go of. When at least we were getting married, in the first 1 year of our marriage, she was of the opinion that we will probably want to buy a house someday. She changed her views around the kind of issues, when you have to take a loan and then you have to pay an EMI, and considering that you want to take this risk of content creation, etc. So she changed her views. The point is, you will have to take these hard calls that now if I'm letting go of this stable money, and how am I thinking to justify it? It's not like we can't afford it. These are symbolic. We are telling ourselves, okay, fine, I will have to put some extra energy. I will have to travel more to my office from when I have to move from here to HSR, where my office was. So these are the kind of sacrifices or adjustments which we did.
So Navtha, we are very new into content space, but by general discussions, everybody knows that there is a lot of money to be made in this space. The upper limit is in fact way more than what we were making in our stable corporate jobs, which to be very frank was very decent. So I do not know specifically how our paths would turn out to be, but we are definitely kind of aiming to make as much money as we were making in our corporate jobs, which I think combined income of around 5 lakh per month. But to tell you very honestly, even that money was excess money. So philosophically, we are also at that phase in our life where we're moving towards a direction that materialism is not something that will give you eventual happiness. That is something that we right now.
In terms of numbers, Navda, I mean, over the last four months, roughly, I think we were just calculating.
Yes.
On an average, we have earned around 50 to 55,000 per month. And I think one of the benchmarks that we had was this only. Our monthly expenses is something which we should be able to earn out of this content journey, and then I'll quit. So roughly our monthly expenses are 42,000 of rent right now, and say
80,000 monthly expenses.
This was the target. And then we would have felt that, okay, we have almost 50, 60 lakhs of savings, and then if monthly expenses we are able to get from here, we'll feel very comfortable.
Yeah, you're not living off of your savings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think both of you spoke about, in some aspects, your relationship with money, right? You spoke about the notional sacrifices, right? That you made to commit to the process, and you spoke about, letting go of the materialistic desires. My, sort of broader question on, so there's one thing on taking care of your monthly expenses. But then the other aspect, what money does for us is also taking care of our key milestone life events, right? Whether it's buying house, whether it's kids education, etc., etc. Sometimes parents are also dependent on you. What is your take on managing those big milestone, expenditures of life? Have you discussed about that?
When it comes to our parents' health, I think that's also something which, like I said, from a health insurance point of view, I've taken it for both my parents. Additionally, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that both our side of parents have done very well in terms of saving money for themselves. So that's something I think we have to acknowledge it. We've been very fortunate that way. And I think about the child piece is also something. So obviously we've taken a health insurance which covers child birth point of view. It covers the expenses. However, to be honest, the decision of having a child or not, that's still in a limbo right now. We are very clear that the first priority, having a child, is not an agenda. If we have access, if we feel we are comfortable, if we think that we have the bandwidth, as of now, this is where we are. So if that happens, I think it will happen with the backing that we have enough financial security to take care of that decision.
You set an example of money doing its job. It is giving you the freedom to do what you want, right? So I think that's the purpose of money, and you are a great example for that. So thank you so much. I think the last question, and we'll wrap this up with that, any advice to give for someone who is today as a couple, say in Bangalore, planning their financial journeys and trying to take those risky decisions. What's your advice to them?
I think the base of everything is that the husband and wife, the two partners, should be able to have very honest conversations about, first of all, whatever they are earning, any commitment which they have, some kind of a loan, etc. And in fact, these conversations should happen even before you get married. Plus, your dreams, your visions of a happy life. I think it's very important that you first have this conversation so that when you get into that relationship, your financial needs, my financial needs don't come as a shock to the other partner, right? One is this. And then obviously, after you become a team, stop looking yourself as only as individuals. There will be things of individualism which will always stay, but you have to consider yourself as a team. You need to set some common goals for yourself. Yes, you can keep some money for your individual, luxuries, wants, etc. But you still need to have a common goal 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line. Where do you look yourself? On the basis of that, you need to start discussing and talking. In which mutual fund or stock to invest, all those decisions you can still go to Google and YouTube and figure it out. That's not too difficult. The execution part is not difficult. The more important part is at an intellectual level, the two of you need to come to the same table, and then it will be much more peaceful.
So just curious, right? At the time that you were getting married, were there any non-negotiable money-related things that you put on the table?
I think the only major challenge was our perspective on buying a house or not. I think that is where there was a level of uneasiness in terms of, okay, that's a big financial commitment which she thinks that we should buy, and I thought that does not make sense. But again, if the fundamentals are right, then both of us started discussing. It took us almost 1.5 years to get convinced to come to the common points of discussion. As of now, the way we are looking, envisioning our life 20 years down the line, probably it does not make a lot of sense to continue in a job, take a loan, and then paying that EMI, right? So what is the priority? I would love to have a house. I'm not saying that I don't want a house. What we are saying is that the kind of life that we need, we don't want to get stuck in EMIs. That is the level of clarity which we had.
So great. Thank you so much. I had a great time.